Welcome to Ladders. I'm Christian DeAndre of FTW. He's a Rhode Island scumbag, Mike Yaj Boyajian. Yaj, what was your favorite part of Vanderbilt's upset over South Carolina this weekend?
I would just go with they win over South Carolina.
Yeah,
I'm going to generalize it.
Here's what I'm hearing. You've let me down. I told you. I told everyone. Upset alert. Going into Williams-Brice Stadium. Getting the win. I had nothing to do with it, but it felt like I was there spiritually because I was drinking a lot, and that sacrifice helps the team.
I saw the Rumpelmines came out, so I knew that was a big celebration day for you when the Rumpelmines comes out.
That's true. You only drink the Rumpelmans if A, you want to get really drunk on toothpaste, or B, the Vanderbilt Commodores win something. The opportunity has been few and far between. It's been a very Rumpel season for me. Back to the topic at hand. We're doing our ladders show, which means we're taking the guys rising up the boards in fantasy football and stacking guys on top of them for who you drop in order to bring in a Torrey Horton, in order to bring in a Jake Browning. And in fact, that's exactly where we're going to start. Jake Browning, new Cincinnati Bengals QB1, Joe Burrow out for 3 months. Browning only 1% owned right now. Obviously, that number is going to go up. So let's talk about the guys you might be considering dropping him to keep him on your roster as a QB2. Number one, they let him cook this weekend. Russell Wilson, 5% owned, but that number is going to go up too. Would you drop Russell Wilson for Jake Browning?
Yes, I would. I still did not forget what Russell Wilson looked like in week 1. And there's no saying that he won't turn back to that guy again. So, I mean, Browning in 2023, he was pretty consistent down the stretch for a guy who had to step in for someone the caliber of Joe Burrow. I'd rather take the chance on his upside. He had a 70.4% completion percentage in 2023 over those starts. 14 touchdowns, and adding another 3 that he rushed in as well. Touchdown to interception ratio was 12-7. He put together a good stretch. I want to say it was weeks 10 to 17, if memory serves correct. So topped out with 354 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a 34-31 win. So that was the peak. Least amount of yards he threw for was 156 in week 18 against Cleveland, but that was also in a 31-14 blowout. So yeah, obviously they didn't really need him to throw the ball that much. So Browning.
Browning's got a surprisingly high ceiling for a guy who was backup. We've seen it before, but I'm also going to throw another number at you. That's 6.4. That's how many yards downfield his average target was in 2023. That, granted, a lot of that's because the Bengals, A, have playmakers, and B, have terrible blocking. See Joe Burrow. He's going to hit that quick hit offense versus a Russell Wilson where Brian Daboll's not dumb. He's going to let Russ cook. He's going to dial up more moon balls. And until he threw that game-ending pick, 7-10 on those deep throws, 200-plus yards, really looked like the guy of old. And Malik Neighbors, we know, is a guy who can go out there and get it. So in this case, I want the upside of Russ versus the catch and run of Jake Browning. Okay. Next guy up on the ladder, 25% owned. Fantasy stud, real life dud, let's face it, Tua Tagovailoa. You taking Tua or Jake Browning?
Give me Browning again. Once again, he also has the benefit of having the RB1 and Chase Brown. Last time around, if you remember correctly, he was working with Samaje Perine for the most part because Joe Mixon was also hurt. So I'm going to take the improved weapons and Browning here.
See, we just got a Tua throwback day, but I feel like it's going to be so inconsistent. Mike McDaniel's coaching for a job. He seems a little bit checked out already. He's already thrown out press conference quotes about how we could die tomorrow. That's never a good sign when your coach addresses his own mortality, especially if he's younger than me. That's not great. I do like Tua's upside if you need someone to stream, but I want the floor of Jake Browning over Tua Tagovailoa.
They're not going to play the Patriots defense every week. And the Patriots were definitely they're on the up, but they still are a work in progress in terms of NFL defense too.
Yeah, no Christian Gonzalez, and we got a throwback game from Tyreek Hill conveniently, and where he's like, "Oh, I want them to trade me real quick. I'm going to say nice things about Tua." I feel like that's going to be a fleeting moment. I feel like Tyreek is more cooked than rare right now. All right, let's go up to our next guy.
Okay.
Rough day in week 2 against a blitzing defense, but didn't have to do much because his team was in the lead pretty much all game. Michael Penix Jr., 40% owned. Would you take Jake Browning over MPJ?
This one's a toss-up. It's going to come down to what you personally think is going to be the outcome of somebody like Michael Penix. Is he going to grow with this offense? He does have some great weapons with Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Kyle Pitts has looked surprisingly serviceable 2 weeks in a row now. Let's keep that one in mind. He's got Darnell Mooney, and he's agile. So we saw in week 1 more so than in week 2, he can run if he has to. So in this case, if he's available and you're inclined to take a chance on a little bit more, rushing help with your quarterback, you can lean Penix. But again, for someone like a Burrow owner, you might want to stick with somebody more classic like Browning.
Yeah, I actually love stashing Penix on your roster right now just because that upside is there. And I think we saw what his floor was against the Vikings. The one thing that gives me pause is that run game. How often are you going to throw the ball when you have Bijan Robinson making guys miss on a regular basis? Tyler Algier to spell him when he gets tired. I feel like this is going to be a ground-based offense going forward, despite the presence of those playmakers. At the same time, Penix has that arm strength. He's making those sideline throws. He's making those downfield throws. He's been getting the green light to really, truly air it out. As a result, you don't need those yards after catch. You're just getting them on top of that. So in this case, I want Penix, not Jake Browning.
Nice.
Let's move on to our next man up. We talked about Russ Wilson cooking. How about Wan'Dale Robinson, the beneficiary of that big day? 22% owned coming into today. That number is going to go way up because he looks like a true wide receiver 2 in that offense. Granted, we don't know what the offense is going to look like going forward, if wide receiver 2 is even going to be relevant. But let's talk about the guys who are roughly on his level. Let's start with Adam Thielen, Minnesota Vikings. You want Wan'Dale or Adam Thielen?
Give me Wan'Dale here, and that isn't even a question. Fortunately for Thielen, love him as a player. He's helped me out several years leading up to this year, but unfortunately, he's kind of near the end of the road, and he clearly doesn't have a big role, and it's going to shrink even more moving forward. Addison's got 1 game left on that suspension. Got to keep that in mind. That's why they brought him there to begin with. They need some depth behind the loss of Addison. So, no, Wan'Dale for me, he looks like a wide receiver 2. In that offense. Theo Johnson hasn't really taken over as the TE1, which we all thought that he could possibly be the second receiver in this offense behind Neighbors, but that's not the case. It's looking like Robinson, and I'm willing to roll the dice with him.
Yeah, I would go the exact same way. Thielen only has 4 targets in 2 games. Granted, he's coming back. He re-entered the offense late, but he's going to get bumped down that receiver list before the time he really gets his sea legs underneath him. And more importantly, I think we're missing the point here, Yash. It's how bad are the Chicago Bears? If they can go out and lose a game to that version of J.J. McCarthy, make him look like a stud, he immediately gets nerfed by the Falcons defense. The Bears go out there and then get painted by Jared Goff in the Lions offense. This is another grim season. The Bears just speed running their fan misery in like half a game instead of the normal 3-4 weeks. Just beautiful stuff from Ben Johnson. It's going to get better, but mostly because it can't get any worse. All right, let's talk about the next man up, about 10% more owned than Wan'Dale Robinson. Kayshon Boutte had that big week 1 appearance and then disappeared into the ether a little bit. Patriots were running the ball pretty heavily in week 2. Boutte only 1 target for 16 yards. Yaj, do you want Boutte or Wan'Dale Robinson?
This one's tough because as a Patriots fan, I love Boutte, but I don't see the same opportunities that we see for Wan'Dale Robinson right now, and it really is just inconsistent. Diggs looked like he was a little bit more involved yesterday. You still had the tight ends were all still involved, and the running backs got involved. Not the one we thought was going to get involved in the passing game in Travion Henderson, but Ramondre Stevenson, showing us that he can still play. So, again, it hurts me to say Wan'Dale Robinson over Kayshon Boutte, especially picking a Giant over a Patriot, but I got to go with the numbers here, and it just looks like Wan'Dale's got more opportunity.
Yeah, I love Boutte as a daily fantasy flyer, right? A guy who's going to sink down, be cheap, and he's going to get those deep targets. But what we saw from Robinson in week 2, average target distance 16 plus yards. His average target distance last season under 5 yards. So Russ wants to go at him deep. He's also got a lot more separation ability downfield than Kayshon Boutte. He's got a lot more run after the catch ability than Kayshon Boutte. So give me that upside versus maybe you get a few big targets downfield. Boutte comes through, makes those contested catches that he's so good at, but ultimately doesn't have a big stat line. I want the upside of Wan'Dale Robinson. Finally, last guy, it's running back, Trey Benson. Do you want Trey Benson holding up a spot on your roster, or do you want to drop him for Wan'Dale Robinson?
Well, this is one of those situations. What do you need? If you have enough wide receiver depth, you got 5 or 6 guys that you are confident with starting, and then, your bye week fill-ins or, injury happens, and you can pop one of those guys in. Don't bother dropping a serviceable running back for another bench stash if that's the way your roster is looking. Now, if you have 4 or 5 serviceable running backs and your wide receiver depth is a little thin, then I don't have a problem with making this move. However, just keep in mind, Cardinals are using him more this year, and he has been spelling James Conner more often than we had seen before. So, again, this comes down to your roster build. I'm good with either one of those two.
You know what? Even if you are stacked flush with running backs, hold on to Trey Benson, because right now, James Conner, he is an old man, 30 years old, 3.2 yards per carry, always been a bit of a plotter, a bit of a power back, but Benson has been wonderful behind him. Granted, very limited carries, only 11 so far, but an insane 3.4 rush yards over expected per carry. And we saw him get involved in the passing game this last week, 6 targets. This is a guy with a huge upside. In fact, go out and try and trade with us. See if you have a league manager dumb enough to sell low on Trey Benson right now. If James Conner gets hurt, or if he just remains moderately ineffective, we're going to see those Benson numbers go.
Right.
All right. Next man up, Yash. This is your victory lap because you called him out last week. You called him the Broncos wide receiver 2, and then he went out and showed it. Your boy, Troy Franklin.
Yes.
8 catches, 89 yards, 100 total yards, 9 targets, a touchdown. This guy was absolutely flying. Now, 2% owned right now. That number's going way, way up, just like the Trey Benson theoretical futures I just brought out there. Would you take him over Romeo Doubs?
All right. So I know Doubs is also a guy that I've touted here in this very segment. So I had kind of take a step back here in this one, because obviously Franklin, I was blown away by how involved he was. I didn't expect that week 2. Now, here's what you got to keep in mind. Jaden Reed is going to be out for a little while. So typically when Reed's gone, Doubs steps into obviously a more concentrated role. But you still have Dontavian Wicks, you now have Matthew Golden, and more importantly, the guy who really exploded week 2 was Tucker Kraft.
Yep.
So some of those contested catches that were Doubs are kind of going Kraft's way now. So I'm a little excited about Franklin, and I'm going to kind of roll with him. I don't know if that would be the wisest decision, considering Doubs is more established, but give me Franklin here. I really like what I saw on Sunday from him.
Yeah, that upside much higher than Doubs, who's been pretty much the same guy for the last 3 seasons. He can have some spikes, but they don't really go up to the way that they're going to change your fantasy roster. I do think he's going to get more targets, but not necessarily enough to make a difference, because this Packers offense really does spread the ball quite a bit. And even if Tucker Kraft is moving up in the world, that's not going to leave stuff behind him, because you have Luke Musgrave there as well, who's another very solid receiving tight end. You also have to consider that Green Bay right now, the defense is putting opponents in absolute hell, and they have Josh Jacobs. So they're going to be nursing those second half leads, grinding clock, running the ball quite a bit. I think they're exactly where they want to be, in a situation where they don't need Jordan Love to throw them back into games. That's going to really kind of put a governor on every wideout's ceiling right now. So in this case, give me Franklin's upside over the fact that you're probably going to get a good 8 to 12 points per game out of Doubs from now until the end of the season.
Right.
Next man up, a little bit more owned. Another steady but unspectacular guy up in Buffalo, Joshua Palmer. Do you want Josh Palmer or do you want Troy Franklin?
This is tough, but once again, I think I'm going to lean towards Franklin. Palmer's kind of in that same bucket with Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, where we don't really know week to week who's going to be the apple of Josh Allen's eye. They also tend to go run heavy at times too. So is it a James Cook game? So, I mean, it's hard. You got to think about it a little bit because Palmer has shown some life with the Bills, but again, I really believe in Franklin. I mean, I just got to go with the guy. I can't come up with a reason not to go with him more so than a reason to go with Palmer.
Yeah, Palmer tends to run hot and cold. He's a guy who's probably going to give you about 3 catches between 30 and 50 yards per game that you can count on. Whereas Franklin does look like that wide receiver too right now.
Yeah.
Palmer's still fending off Keon Coleman. Like you said, Khalil Shakir is right there to be the inside guy. So Palmer's role is still a little bit more up in the air. And you can make the same case about Troy Franklin as well. He's got one good game to his credit. At the same time, he's establishing that rapport with Bo Nix. He's getting open. And he's got some huge yards after catch numbers. His average target only came 6.7 yards downfield, but he had tons of separation. That separation gave him the space to really get out there, create some magic after the catch. So he's not only going to potentially give you some deep balls because he is a very fast speedster of a wideout, but he's also a guy that can give short passes to, kind of dial Bo Nix back to that last year at Oregon way he was, and ensure that you're going to pick up big gains because you have a shifty, real quick outside wide receiver who can make hay while Cortland Sutton's out doing his thing deep. Finally, Rashod Bateman, quiet start to the season, 8 targets, only 4 catches. Pretty boring beginning for him. Would you take Rashod Bateman over Troy Franklin?
All right. Last year's Rashod Bateman, yes. This year's Rashod Bateman, no. It looks like Zay Flowers is going to be the go-to receiver this year. I'm more than willing to just roll with Troy Franklin at this point and see where he's at. I mean, that was a great week too. If we're gonna build on that, if he's gonna continue that role, I don't think any Ravens pass catcher besides Flowers is really going to be a threat in that respect.
The one thing that does concern me, yes, Bo Nix has gotten off to a slow start, but also pretty much everyone was very open against the Colts. That Colts secondary not yet fixed. Only by the grace of Danny Dimes himself is that team 2-0.
True.
Beautiful. And at the same time, I cannot trust Rashod Bateman. He's off to a slow start. He appears to be going down the pecking order compared to DeAndre Hopkins, who goes out there and old man footballs his way to a big catch every game. Apparently, that's the thing he does now. Just goes out there and makes you go, holy crap. He could just being an old guy, just creating space downfield, boxing dudes out, having those hands.
And that was the Bateman that we saw last year. Those catches were coming from him, not from Hopkins. So
yeah, and right now, Bateman's had a negative impact, negative catch rate over expected, negative EPA. How long is that going to last? Is he going to remain in the pecking order when Isaiah Likely comes back? It's always Isaiah Likely, Yash.
That guy,
is DeAndre Hopkins, is he going to get hurt? Is he going to take some time off? I don't know. And I do agree there's plenty of time for Rashod Bateman to turn things around and get back to that 2024 form. But I don't think the ceiling is there anymore. I know we keep talking about ceiling in these, but we are talking about guys who can really go out and get it. A couple of young wideouts from Wan'Dale Robinson and Troy Franklin that maybe not must adds, but if you got a spot and you got a guy who's maybe giving you 6-7 points a week right now, get rid of him. Go get Troy Franklin. Go get Wan'Dale Robinson.
Those and I like those end of the bench stashes too. Like maybe you're stashing someone like Luther Burden. A lot of promise, but doesn't really seem like that's going to come to fruition anytime soon. He's a guy that I would take a chance with Troy Franklin with. It's like someone who might have upside. It's just not there yet. Trey Harris, another one. Those types of stashes that you're hoping for something to happen. But, I mean, we're seeing it happen with Troy Franklin now. So why wait 4 or 5 weeks when you can just have that now?
We might be seeing it happen with Torrey Horton, our guy from week 1, our big sleeper who came out, really thrived in the space created by Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, there's a bunch of guys right now that have very nice little pedigrees who can come out and do the damn thing.
Just don't be too hesitant to let someone go that you're attached to. I think that's the biggest problem we have early on, is just holding a little too long on guys that just might not have it this year. So
yeah, no sunk cost fallacy. When they stink, get rid of them. Doesn't matter if you draft them in the 8th round. Let someone else burn their waiver wire cash for them. Go out and get the guys who are performing. Get out and get the guys who still have potential.
Yes, love it.